Hello everyone, it's Jamal Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. Let me make sure I am up. I hope everyone is doing alright. Second show of the morning. These are being done early. Like I said, I have a radio appearance. This evening, and I'm gonna have to drive to Washington DC. So that should be fun. I gotta be honest, I always hate driving, but I love being on the radio. So it's a great incentive to get my ass out of my typical space. So in the last video I did, I was talking about this thing of the details on Israel being a quote-unquote Jewish state. I gotta be honest, I even saying it sounds racist, because it is racist. It just is, like I said, it's a flat fact, just as calling it what it is. If I said it was a black state or a white state, in this case, a Jewish state, nobody seems to have issue with that. I need to explain how I process this. I'm going to have Ivory, if you're still here, I'm going to have you call in to make your case. But before you make your case, let me explain how I process this. Because I can be critical of what's taking place in Israel, but I need you to explain how I see this. I don't see this, it's funny, when Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez started talking about this issue before she sheepishly backed away from reality and being honest about it. She says, I processed this through, and she starts naming the experiences of various groups. And I it's the same for me. I'm an African American with Cherokee in my family. So what does that mean in real world terms? What does that mean? Like, it's one thing to say, but what does it mean? And somebody can say, well, it doesn't really mean anything. Well, it does. It does have significance because, otherwise I wouldn't be me. I wouldn't be how I am. I wouldn't be who I am. Ultimately, everything that I am for the most part is just my experiences being driven into me. This country was settled. White colonialists from Europe settled this country in the same way that white colonialists were settling Palestine. Now, in the same way that these two things are similar, the settlement here eradicated the population that was in this country with this idea that this is God's will, a religious, theocratic idea, God's will, wiping out the population. An argument can be made that in part the Revolutionary War was fought to continue westward. And we stole land, and we committed atrocities along the way, killing the Native American population along the way. We doubled up on this atrocity by enslaving a race, completely taking a man and contorting that man into a second-class thing that can be used for work and leisure by the white men that wanted to have their way with the women, with the black women that were in bondage. This is, pretty nasty stuff that is taking place. So when I process what's taking place in Palestine, I process it through that very specific lens. We're getting into this idea of objectivity. There is no such thing. There are points of view. This particular point of view is just, and I would even say more so, only because it takes into account an experience that others like to discount, especially from the standpoint of the West and the Western media. And in this case, I'm saying the Palestinian experience living under the occupation. Look, my piggyback, this idea of slavery with Jim Crow, with maintaining a segregation in the society itself, separate but equal, have you forgot that? Hey, put that shit in the context of the Jewish state. How was separate but equal? Was that just fucking awesome? And everything that was fought. I mean, some people can make this argument of, hey, aren't blacks better off for slavery? That's a pretty nasty argument that you're making. And I look at this, everything that I consider to be some level of agency in decision space. A decision space that wasn't necessarily afforded to any of my kinfolk going down the line, whether it was on the black side or whether it was on the Indian side or Native American side. It was fought for. Like, there are oceans of blood that people have had to drag themselves through for me to get the agency that I have in this particular society. That's the way I look at this. I look at this through the lens of the people who came before me. Now, the catch to this is that all along the way, as all of that blood was being shed for one liberty after the next, or just for the capacity of people seeing you, to some degree being equal citizens, and he's still not there. But at the very least, agency under the law. Yes, I know it's imperfect, but the agency that was fought for and died for, and people bled for to get it. That wasn't. How can I say this? I lost my train of thought. But ultimately, that particular agency that people got and fought for and bled for under the law wasn't necessarily given. It was fought for. People had to die for it. You had people like King and X and Garvey. All of these people were essentially willing to give their lives in order to get some level of what they would consider to be freedom or equality within the context of the legal framework of this country. I know what I was going to say. During that time, the entirety of that time, what was looked at or what was being done wasn't seen through the lens of an atrocity. That's very important. This wasn't a situation where people hung their atrocities on their sleeve and wore it in that way. They didn't get out of bed in the morning thinking we're horrible, horrible, nasty, disgusting, repugnant human beings for what we're doing. They didn't think that at all. Why do you think they were building statues? Because they thought they were repugnant human beings? No. They explained their behavior, this atrocious behavior, in ways that were glory and flattering. And even in the way they looked at the society itself, they said they were second-class citizens because they were second-class citizens, not because of the legal framework and the structure itself, but because God made them that way. It is just the way things are. Of course, it was nonsense. It was self-flattering. It was as gratifying as millionaires and billionaires calling themselves job creators. But they do it nonetheless. Nobody wants to see themselves naked and ugly. I look at what's taking place in Israel through that lens. This lens of differential advantage and how no one wants to give up a differential advantage. It's the same thing to Zimbabwe or South Africa. This is not something that's specific to Israel. This is something that's taking place all over the planet. The only difference with this one is it's in broad daylight in modern day where everyone has eyes on it and everyone can see what is taking place and call it for what it is. There's something that takes place, though, that needs to be understood. In the process of contorting that particular guy into a slave, like in order to mangle that guy into a slave, to some degree, the person who's doing the mangling is also being mangled. It's not a one-way process. It breaks and distorts the mind of the individuals that are involved in the process. To some degree, it distorts the mind of the people in the society. If you were born into Israel, what would you think? What is the culture at that point? Meaning, what is the propaganda that you're being fed? What are the things that you're being told? What is the education that you're getting? What other things are being dumped into you? And all those things similar to what was being dumped into people if they were being born in, let's say, in the 60s or the 50s or the 30s. I'm trying to get into your head that this is not purely just a thing of an Israeli. This is to some degree a cultural thing that distorts the mind of the individuals that are involved in the process, be it Palestinians or be it Israelis. To some degree, we all fall prey to this, just victims of what society puts into us, this kind of societal propaganda that is kind of hard, if not impossible, to extract yourself from. I'm trying to get across this thing that they're calling themselves a Jewish state. And to some degree, in an odd way, the people who are involved in the process are almost robots as they go about their way, in the same way that the people who were involved in the 60s and everything else to some degree were robots, telling themselves, hey, what we're doing is perfectly okay, what we're doing is perfectly all right. And in some way, this thing of trying to maintain a differential advantage just kind of propagates itself. I don't want to get across that there is no penalty here. Like, just because this is, I know what it is. It's self-interest. I guess that's what I'm getting at. there's a self-interest involved in the differential advantage between these two things, where one side has to give up a differential advantage, and neither side tends to like to do that. Look at it in this country in regards to the hard-fought way in which slavery, Jim Crow, and all those things were repealed. The same thing and that same struggle is taking place in Israel and Palestine, with this one glaring difference, that the United States has invested billions of dollars and continue to invest billions of dollars. How do you get anything done when you have somebody investing billions of dollars into maintaining the way things are? The Jewish state thing is nonsense. It's a state. It's a state. Yes, I'm hard on it because you should be hard on them when they're committing atrocities. By the same token, I recognize that this differential advantage thing, and the people who are growing up in the culture and the society are going to have certain deformations in the way that they think and process the world, to make them believe that what they're doing in that particular part of the world is not some level of colonialism, and it's not the taking and the theft of somebody else's land. That for all intents and purposes, what they're doing is perfectly okay. The mind is distorted in the same way the minds of in this country were distorted. Let's see. It's not as simple as you say. Even now, there are Jewish Israelis protesting the law. Joan of Arc. Oh, I don't want to make it. Look, I don't want to give this impression that it's singular. No. I don't want that impression at all. There are Israelis who are protesting the law. Understand, in any government, there's not a uniformity of thought. There never is. Like we pretend, like in Russia, that Vladimir Putin is the only one that has a dispositional point of view in the country. It's nonsense. Same thing is here. I don't want to give this impression that it's singular. So, yes, Joan of Arc, thank you for bringing it up. Geo-Palestinian through the election, Chucky Zionist Schumer. What? Is that a hashtag? That should be a hashtag. Yes, the 1% dividing humanity, when in reality it's about power and control of land. Yes. Yeah, this is not a religious issue. This is not a religious issue. And Ivory, you can call in. I want to hear your point of view on this. Look, I think my main basic point is that, yes, blame the people involved in the process. That's true. But also recognize that the people involved in the process are not fully... Yes, they're involved in their faculties, but they're involved in their faculties in the same way that somebody in the 50s or the 60s. Like this idea that what they're doing is somehow right. Hello, who's speaking?
How's it going? This is Ivory.
Ivory, what is going on, Ivory?
Not much. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. So you took issue with what I was saying in the last video. So explain your point of view to me. What's the thing that you disagree with me with in regards to the story?
Okay, first off, I think you're taking a lot of different issues and you're wrapping them all into one.
That is true.
Like you have,
but go ahead.
So you have to approach the atrocities that are happening, all the land that they keep taking that they shouldn't be taking. All that stuff's horrible. I'm not saying it's not.
Right.
But if you back up a little bit more, do you think Israel should have been established at all? That the land should have been taken from Palestine and the Jews should have been given that land?
You're asking me, do I believe one place should steal land from someone else? No.
No.
No, I don't. Because listen to what you're saying. Listen to what you're, for all intents and purposes, saying. Do I believe that Texas should be able to steal Ohio? No. Why? I mean, that seems so bizarre to me that one land will be able to steal somebody else's land. Why would that be okay?
Yeah, I think taking it's probably a bad idea. They should have paid them handsomely for it.
Whoa. So let me ask you this. Do you believe that the settlers should have been able to steal Louisiana? Or do you believe it was okay for them to purchase Louisiana for $5,000 when Native Americans didn't have this kind of concept of money?
Well, I think that's taking advantage of people that didn't understand what they were dealing with.
How is that different than what you're saying here, that they should have paid them handsomely for it? What if they didn't want to give it up?
Then find a new place. I think the location, that's a non-issue.
Right there. No. Wait. That is not a non-issue. Because you're asking me two different things. If you're asking me, do I believe a state of Israel should be established? Well, it depends. If the state of Israel is established somewhere that's okay with it being established, I have no issue with it. I have no issue with a philosophical idea of establishing a Jewish state or an Israeli state.
Okay.
I got to be honest, calling it Jewish feels so racist to me, man. I don't like It chives me. It gets into me. Now, let's be very clear what we're saying. I am not against an Israeli state being formed. Not in the least. I have no care about it. People can form whatever state they want. My issue has to do with the way it was formed. That's all. And in this case, you have people, because you were like, during that time, Jews and Palestinians were fine together. This conflict, this chaos came when it became this thing of, yes, we're just taking this. Is that fair?
No, that they took the land, it's probably not fair.
Right. Okay. But I'm getting at something a little bit more fundamental. I am okay with the formation of an Israeli state. I don't care. The taking of the land, you would agree with me, created chaos. That created conflict. Is that fair?
I'm not sure what the relationship between Jews and Palestinians were.
Well, beforehand, there were Jews there beforehand. I mean, it wasn't a situation where there was a division between those things. There were some Jews in that particular area, and they did get along with the Palestinians that was in that area. This became somewhat of an issue when it was becoming very clear that this was becoming an Israeli state. I guess I just go ahead. I'm sorry.
If you back up just a little bit more,
Okay.
the Holocaust happens, the Jews are almost wiped out of existence, right?
Yes.
Basically.
Yes. I agree with that. Out of existence may be strong, but I know what you mean. Yes. It was an attempt extermination. Yes, I agree.
Attempted extermination. So let's say that's like the Americans coming in, killing all the Native Americans. Now you're Cherokee. The Native Americans were given a bunch of, well, it's their land, but now they have their different Native American states.
You mean the reservations?
The reservations.
Okay.
That's their version of, they're in control there, right? So it sounds
wait a minute. They're not in control there. I mean, look, let's be honest. Look at what was taking place from the standpoint of the agreements that the United States made in Standing Rock. There were agreements by the United States government that the United States government completely ignored when they wanted to get their hands on that land. Those reservations are those reservations only until the United States decides to take that land. And as we've seen with Trump, any agreement can be ignored if there was some interest that they wanted to get rid of. I guess, yes, they have their reservation, but they have their reservation after they were exterminated. I guess your point is,
were exterminated.
I guess your point is it's in the same way that Native Americans have their reservation, shouldn't Israelis or Jews in this case, God, I hate calling them Jews, but Jews in this case have their own specific spot. Is that where you're getting?
That's what I'm getting at.
I don't disagree with you. But do you agree with me that one atrocity should allow another? So if that Native American population that was wiped out went to Canada and started exterminating Canadians in order to take Alberta, would that be okay?
Now, which part are you talking about? Are you talking about the actual formation of Israel? Was that a genocide? Or are you talking about the actions that they've taken since then to expand?
No. You told me to back up to the point of the extermination, where Hitler goes in to try to exterminate the Jews. Now, forget the fact that the Balfour Document started before World War II, meaning all of these agreements had taken place before the extermination had taken place. So that's the first point. The second point is, even if you're going to go with this idea of shouldn't a group, after an atrocity is committed upon it, gets its own land, okay, even if I agree with that, assume the truth. You use Native Americans. The Native Americans get wiped out and exterminated. Saying after the extermination, they move to Alberta and they start throwing out the population and killing and committing atrocities to the population of Alberta in order to take that particular bit of land. Would the extermination or the wiping out or the committing an apartheid state regime in Alberta be okay because of what took place to the Native Americans in the United States?
No, that wouldn't be okay, but is that the condition?
How are you justifying this in Israel? I guess that's what I'm getting at. I agree with you philosophically.
Educate me. Was that the conditions that happened when they said Israel's going to be in this place like 50, 70 years ago?
I'm saying that's what's happening now.
Did they go in and genocide everybody?
No, they didn't commit genocide to everybody, but right now they have an apartheid state in which they are expanding.
Now they are.
Right. But whether it's taking place now or then, at the point where the population of Alberta doesn't want the Native American population taking the land in that way, and they start to rebel, and in pursuit of stopping people from rebelling, they're killing the population. You can. That's not right. Come on.
Okay, now we're getting closer to the problem.
Right, now we're getting close to the problem. Wait. But I just want you to. I want you to. You don't have to agree with me on it, but I want you to pin you down on this. What you're saying is, it is okay if a group was persecuted and there was an atrocity committed against them. Like, so let's say African Americans leave the United States en masse and they move to Canada and they try to take over a bit of land in Canada, and the Canadians in Alberta don't want the African Americans there. But the African Americans say, we're going to be here and we're going to turn this into a black state, and we're going to put whoever doesn't necessarily want to be in a black state as second-class citizens, and we're going to put up a gate, and we're going to shoot you if you come back to the gate to try to get back to your home. I'm saying whatever gets you to that point where that's what you're doing. Certainly you can see that that's not right and that's not justified, that the prosecutions or what took place to African Americans in one spot does not justify atrocities being committed in another spot. That's what I'm trying to get you to see. That's what I'm trying to nail you down on. I don't have a philosophical difference or issue with the creation of Israel. Fine. My difference in this case is just because an atrocity was committed to you does not allow you to go and commit an atrocity somewhere else.
You see, the problem is you're combining the establishment of Israel, like blacks going up to Canada and killing everybody and saying, you come in here, we're going to kill you, we're horrible, with what Israel's doing now, many years after the fact, as they get greedy and want more and more land. So this is an international...
I'm not conflating the two at all. If Israel was welcomed with open arms, meaning if all of the people, when they displaced their land, when Britain decided to give Palestine to Israel, when they decided to do that, when they decided, look, we're going to take this land and we're going to make a creation and we're going to create a state of Israel, you realize that there would be no conflict if the people in that particular part of the world were okay with it. They weren't okay with it. To them, it was a theft of their land. You understand that? Do you even agree with that?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, then if you agree with that, then my analogy is right. It would be akin to African Americans after being persecuted, or let's say Native Americans. After Native Americans were exterminated in the United States, after that atrocity, moving to Canada, and Canadians not wanting them there, ending up fighting a war over them being there, the United States gives support to the Native American population, which allows them to put down the Canadians, creating an apartheid state in which the Native Americans create a Native American state, and the Canadians in this case being refugees. You can see that there's a problem with that.
Hadn't the international community signed off on the formation of Israel?
What does it matter? So what? It wasn't their land to give.
It wasn't their land to give, but, you know, international consensus of how the world is run.
Where's the but? How's there a but? How's there a but there? It wasn't their land to give. How's there a but?
It wasn't their land to give. It wasn't ideal, but now we're at a situation after the fact. Now we're way down the road. What happens now? Do you get rid of Israel?
Wait. No. I don't want you to slide away from that, because that's an important point. You brought up, shouldn't they get a state? And I'm saying, I don't care if Israel gets a state. I don't care at all. There's nothing in me that has any care at all with whether or not Israel is created. Good, create a state of Israel. I'm saying, however, that state of Israel was created destroying something else. That's all I'm saying. Or at the very least, that state was created in a spot that didn't want it to be there. If you put it somewhere that was okay with it being there, the world shuts up. I shut up. I don't make the last video. I don't make a series of other videos. The world is at peace. But that's not what happened. I'm trying to get you to at very least admit that that was not a good thing to do. That exterminating one just because you were persecuted yourself is not a good thing. It's not moral. It's not. It's to some degree the driver of all the chaos now. I'm trying to get you to see that that is not ideal. That's not good. That's not a good beginning to this, if that makes sense. Do you at least agree with me on that?
No, I agree with you. It wasn't an ideal situation, but...
That's putting it mildly, Ivory.
Yeah, it wasn't an ideal situation.
All right.
The atrocities...
So you agree with me on that? An atrocity committed to somebody does not allow an atrocity to be committed after the fact. Is that fair?
You see, I wouldn't categorize taking the land as an atrocity.
What do you call it?
I call it horrible, but it's not going in there and killing them and doing everything that they're doing now.
What's the distinction between an atrocity and horrible?
Well, you're killing people and making people suffer and taking somebody's land in a legal arrangement, even though you got screwed in it. You know, that's not killing you and imprisoning you and cutting off resources to you and your children. What they're doing now is an atrocity. Just forming Israel and taking their land and pissing them off, that's just a disagreement.
Yeah,
a political
well, no,
disagreement,
I guess
geopolitical.
But it goes beyond a disagreement. You're stealing something that belongs to someone else. And in stealing something that belongs to someone else, you don't think that there's going to be chaos associated with stealing something that belongs to someone else. You don't think they have a right to be pissed off and that they may actually, fight back to preserve their land?
I think they are apparently trying, and that's not the best strategy.
They should just give it up. Just open your legs and just let it happen. That's what it sounds like you're saying. This sounds really bad. I mean, look, I agree with you. I'm okay with this idea of Israel being created. I don't care. I don't care what any state is created, if I'm being honest. They're just places and locations. The nation itself is just a mental figment. I understand this idea of creating an Israeli homeland. Fair enough. Agreed. I agree with you. The question becomes where? And the question becomes, if you're putting it on someone else, that you're going to take their property to do so, I am against that. That's my only contention here. That's my only issue here. And
okay, I got a question for you.
Go for it.
Let's say that Israel was just formed. They took the land as was agreed. International.
Agreed by who? Agreed by who?
International.
By the way, when Britain gave that land up in World War One, when they decided that the Balfour Declaration was going to take place, that they also had agreed to an Arab nation. They also agreed to an Arab nation. You didn't get the Arab nation. You just got the Jewish nation. They agreed to both. Britain was given away both at the exact same time because Britain was in danger of losing that war, and Britain was giving up whatever Britain could give, in which case they signed the declaration. Okay, go for it. I'm sorry. I'm running my mouth.
My question is if Israel was established and they just got the land and they lived peacefully as they could, just defending themselves, and there was no atrocities going on today where they're shooting kids in the back and stuff like that, would you have a problem? Would you be like, we need to get rid of Israel? This is wrong.
There is no such thing as peacefully defending yourself. Like I'm trying to. This is why I know it sounds like I'm trying to focus a lot on one specific thing, because I'm trying to nail down that things that take place have reverberations. There is no break in history. There is no point where people can look back and say, okay, history stopped there for a moment and now we're moving. That doesn't happen. I'm trying to nail down this idea that the inciting incident was the thing that was the splinter. It was the thing that is hard to nail out. The very act of the creation itself in a place that doesn't want you is violence. That's what I'm getting at. It's not this passive thing. Like they passively took the land. Imagine American settlers saying we passively took the land and we were just defending ourselves against these hordes of Native Americans. Well, you've taken their land.
At this point, Native Americans aren't attacking Americans all the time.
Because they've been wiped out.
Exactly. They got wiped out. Palestinians got wiped out. They don't have the power here. So keeping attack at the bigger power, that's not very smart. But that doesn't excuse the atrocities that they're coming down on them with and keeping them economically cut off and all that. I'm not excusing that.
Let me ask you a question, though. If there was some kind of consensus, meaning they said, all right, we're no longer attacking and killing and we're coming to some level of peace. Look, I wish they do form peace, but how do you form peace in this particular climate? I mean, ultimately, I get your point. You're saying, look, they're fighting back. They shouldn't fight back. They should just let it happen. Is that fair?
Yeah. At this point, they shouldn't be attacking Israel all the time. But Israel shouldn't be committing atrocities in an overbearing reaction to it.
Let me ask you this. So is the same thing true if a guy is in prison, one guy is bigger, one guy is smaller, and he's about to get raped? Should he just let it happen?
Well, I don't think that's
not an apt analogy. You said it is not smart for them to keep attacking them. I mean, they're a bigger power, And because they keep attacking them, they're getting massacred. That is not a smart thing to do. Now, I'm saying that if you're in a situation where one's power is stronger than the other, should the other just not do anything?
If the international community comes together and decides on something,
they've decided that Israel is a terrorist state. They've decided that Israel was an apartheid state. They've condemned Israel over and over again. The international community has said that what Israel is doing is illegal.
I agree. What they're doing now is illegal. What they were doing 50 years ago, less illegal. Well,
less illegal. I like that.
It wasn't. It was agreed upon by the international community. They formed Israel. The atrocities that they're committing, everything they're doing after that, is bad. I agree with you. But you're saying that even 50 years ago, 60 years ago, we got to get rid of Israel. This is wrong. And I'd say, yeah, it's wrong, but this is what everybody agreed on.
By the way, I never said you needed to get rid of Israel. I never said that. I never said it. I don't have this belief that you need to get rid of Israel. That's not my belief. Look, just so we're clear, a nation, it's not a real thing. It's a legal fiction. Your state of Israel, the United States could exist in Africa if you wanted it to. It's just a mental conception. If the White House is destroyed tomorrow by an alien attack, it doesn't kill America. The state of Israel could be anywhere. It's in the mind of the people who are involved. That's the only way it works from somebody being in Brazil, being Israeli, and somehow it's part of the Israeli national. So don't misunderstand me.
Is to move Israel?
No, it's look. I don't think at this point you can move Israel. I think at this point you need a solution. You need a single state solution. And it's harder to do by calling that a Jewish state.
See, why a single state? Why can't they have two states peacefully? Why can't Israel back off to what they originally captured or they originally were given? And then peaceful and boost Palestine, give them a huge economic boost.
Essentially pay them off.
Yeah, pay them off, improve their lives, stop the fighting, peace and prosperity, two states, go forward.
This is what I would tell you, and I think we will find agreement on this. I'm not against that, provided the Palestinians are for that. I don't like this thing of imposing from an external standpoint what I think a people's life should be. The Palestinians at this point would prefer a single state. I don't necessarily know why they would prefer a single state, but they would. They want to be one state. I think you're saying, look, I want a Jewish state. And so I don't like this idea of Israel killing these people. I kind of want them to have some level of peace, and I want them to back off into two states. Is that fair?
Yeah, it's not just killing people. It's also Israel progressively taking their land. And that's why Palestinians are aggressive, because Israel doesn't stop.
No, I agree.
That's the part that's wrong.
Well, all of this was wrong. That's what I'm trying to get you to understand. Like, all of this was wrong. I understand moving forward from there. Don't misunderstand me. So I would agree with you on that. If I don't care the solution here, meaning if it's a single state, if it's two states, if it's Israel pulling itself out, and let Palestine, like you said, give it an economic boost to try to raise them up. Because here's the key point: Israel will never have peace under the current situation if Palestine is a shithole to live in. And
I agree.
Until they have a decent living standard, Israel will suffer.
Yeah, that's why my solution would be two states, but Israel needs to give back what they illegally took, the additional settlements that they took, and then also an economic program to boost Palestine, a big one, and then there would be no problem. People would be happy, and there would be no fighting.
Let me ask you this: do you think that's possible? Like, I don't know the political climate of Israel. I've seen it is a weird country, man. It's like you can, as an American, you can cross into areas of Palestine easier than, like, back and forth than the people who live there. It's so bizarre. What do you think? Do you think that that's possible? Like, do you think that it would ever get to a point where they would literally demobilize again? Because I know once before they did do that, where they pulled, they have these images of yanking these settlers with their guns. Do you think they would ever, or you think, let me ask you this, do you think there would be a government in Israel that would be willing to do something like that? And secondary, do you think the Palestinians would accept it?
Yeah, I think that it's possible, especially if international community pushes it and supports it. And if you're offering Palestinian people and the country land, in addition to huge economic boost, I think a lot of people would enjoy that also. I think they'd be like, okay, let's improve things all around. We get more land. We get their settlements that they built up. And yeah, I think that would be an adequate solution.
You know, I agree with you on this, and I'm glad you bring this up to the level of land. Like, some people talk about this from the standpoint of religion. Like, oh, Jews and Muslims have been fighting forever. And it's like, they weren't fighting forever. like this is this epic struggle going back to the beginning of time. And it's like, no, even if that was true, it's like this very specific issue has to do with land. I agree with you on this towards the end. I do agree with you at the end point, that at a certain point, people get sick of not having a decent living space. Get sick of fighting. And they come to the table and say, okay, let's try to work this out. But I don't think that would ever work if Palestinians were living in shit and piss and Israel is, looking like a little America.
Yeah, and the thing is, we have the money for it. Internationally, that could happen.
They get billions. Israel by itself gets billions. Israel could do it by itself. I mean,
Israel's taken over by a right-wing authoritarian government that just wants more and more, and they're set on. So they're in a difficult situation in that Palestine says we want to get rid of Israel. And that's an understandable thing for them to say because, if I were Palestinian, I'd want to get rid of them too. So they keep that as an aggression.
Honesty, I love the honesty.
That's the only way.
No, I'm sorry. I love your honesty. You must understand, I have these conversations all the time. And in having these conversations, people look, I hate the right-wing argument on this that says, look, we won, fuck them. I hate that argument. That argument is honest, but I hate that argument because I think that argument is just chaos. There's no way you're ever going to get peace in that situation without essentially wiping out the other population like the United States did here. The left-wing position on this, however, the honest position is, look, I understand Palestinians being enraged because I would be enraged if I was a Palestinian living in that situation. By the same token, I want Israel to exist. And in such, I even understand how they feel that they're being set upon and they need to push back against what they consider to be attacks on their very existence. Like, both things are true. I guess that's to some degree my dilemma when I talk about this. I agree with you. I agree. I don't think people are as divided. Again, I always say people are not as divided as I think they seem. I think for me, it was the disposition, I think, that I took you to be taken of the start of all this. It's not okay for one to commit an atrocity just because something has happened to them. I guess that was an inciting point. I don't have any issue with Israel existing. That's not my issue. I don't want anybody to think that. My issue has to be how they were brought into existence. And
but the problem with how it's brought into existence is what country on earth would gladly give up their land? You have China going to war almost because they want to build a little bit of extra islands and people don't give up their land that easily. Countries, nobody wants that. And I think that's the difference. You're dealing with the people of Palestine, what they want, and what the government of Palestine wants. Do people of Palestine care about a little extra land? Probably not. I don't care if somebody took a little bit of America.
Then why are they still fighting?
They're fighting because Israel keeps pushing.
But
Israel keeps committing atrocities.
No. I'm asking you something different. Why are they fighting in the beginning? Meaning, why did this propagate itself to where it is now if they didn't care about the land being taken in the first place? I'm saying that position makes no sense. Wait. Hear me out. Because you're saying two different things. In the first case, if it sounds like you're making this case of saying, A, nobody will want to give up their land because people consider their land to be valuable. Agreed. China is willing to go to war on their land and et cetera, et cetera. By the same token, would they care about it that much? Yeah, they care.
That's the difference between the country and the people. Like if Canada took a little bit of America in the north,
there would be a war.
I would not go pick up.
There would be a war.
The government would go get the troops and go tell them to go kill whoever they point at, of course. But me personally, as a human,
but the government is a representation of the people of that particular property. The government would go to war. I know. I understand you're making a distinction between government and people, but I'm saying the distinction doesn't really apply here. A country will defend its borders. I don't understand why you don't think it's okay for them to defend theirs.
Well, at a certain point, there's only so much you can do. At a certain point,
Just open
like
your
the
legs
Native
and take it.
Americans don't keep attacking America, because at a certain point, you have to accept reality, and this is a shitty situation, but
Just
it's
open your
the
legs and
situation you
take
got to
it.
go forward with.
Just open your legs and take it. Just open your legs. That's what you're saying. You're saying, look, there are two things here. There's the moral argument of they have no justification and no right. Period. They don't. I'm sorry, they don't. The second part to this is, despite it being immoral, despite it not having any justification or any right, despite the people was considering this to be an atrocity, you can't do anything about it. So you just open up and take it. That's what this sounds like to me.
I have a problem calling taking land atrocity. Land
Why?
is land. As you said, country borders are imaginary things.
Yes.
When you start abusing people, that's an atrocity.
But
when
you
take
are
somebody's land and
displacing-
political gesturing, that's
But
not.
this is what I'm missing here. Why do you believe that this conflict has bubbled up from the time it has bubbled up to it is now, if the people didn't care about the land that was being stolen?
Well, at a certain point, you need land to stand on. If they keep encroaching onto your land and they keep killing you and they keep subjecting you to abuse, that'll piss you off.
But you
That's
understand,
wrong.
that is the appropriation of land. That's literally what appropriating land is.
Again, we're conflating two issues.
No, we're not.
Conflating the beginning of Israel to the continued encroachment. You showed that map of Israel, how much
Yeah.
they've taken.
Right.
It's ridiculous.
It is. It is. I know. I understand what you're saying. You're saying, look, settling a little spot is okay, but when you settle to the point of you're taking other people's stuff, the very act of them calling that a state and creating the state of Israel in this case in somebody else's territory, I guess that's what I'm getting at. I don't care if they create Israel. So let's just put that on the map. I don't care. They can create Israel anywhere. You said if they paid for land somewhere, would I care? No, I wouldn't. But they didn't do that. And you had people who were living there who were greatly displeased with that being done. This is kind of what I'm getting at. The displeasure of the people who are there is rebuffing your point. If those people didn't care, then none of this would be the way it is. I'm saying those people clearly cared. And this idea that, well, it's only a big deal because they started encroaching on land. The very act of the creation is an encroachment on land.
So you're saying the continued hostilities, 70 years after the fact, is all from that initial point of land that they took, and it has nothing to do with the abuse and economic open-air prisons that they had?
No. Do you know that the wars for land sometimes takes place over like 100 years? Like, I know we look at this stuff through the confines of just a lifetime, but some of the wars going back between like Germany and France and Russia and so forth, there was land that had been appropriated that had been on one side for like years, like tens, decades, hundreds of years. So it's not necessarily insane that some conflict lasts for 50, 60, 70 years. That's not necessarily, an aberration from the standpoint of historical context. And yes, I am saying that the appropriation of land, because look, I would say somewhat sacrosanct. We are here because of what took place then. And if what took place then wasn't a big deal, then we wouldn't be here right now.
Yeah, but at a certain point, you have to deal with the reality of what's facing you, and not just keep looking back and figuring out why we got there. At this point, we have Israel, we have Palestine. How to fix this? Is it get rid of Israel and make it one state, as you suggest? I don't know if that's true. Or is it something in the middle and doing reparations, retroactively paying them for the land, giving them a huge economic boost, giving them the additional land that Israel took? And I think that would be a huge step towards Palestinians being like, okay, maybe this could work.
I agree. That I agree with. That I do agree with. Yeah, I agree.
Israel taking the land in the first place, yeah, it wasn't good. Wasn't good. But, at a certain point, you just got to deal with what you got.
The deal, I guess it's the deal with what you got. I hate that. Look, I'm a minority, and I've heard that too often from whites who are like, look, man, you guys keep bringing up this historical stuff. It's like, well, history has a context. You look at, the position of people in African Americans in this country now, and whites have a tendency of acting like it was just magic that blacks got here. And no, we don't want to talk about that because we get uncomfortable with that. The reason I say that is there's this thing of, yeah, people just have to get over it. That is easy to say when you've been a benefactor of what had taken place. There was a guy I used to work with, and he would be like, yeah, man, I didn't have anything to do with that. That wasn't my fault. As if somehow, like, like, and it wasn't so much that anybody was saying this is your fault. More so, there is a historical context to the events that we have today, and that historical context should be taken into consideration when we're having opinions on the things that's happening now. I understand where you're coming from. That shocks me. I hate that statement. It feels flippant.
I'm
not saying it is. It
get
just feels
over
that way.
it. I'm saying they need to make up for what they've done. Like in the legal process, somebody punches you in the face, you go to court, you're like,
Yeah.
this guy punched me in the face, we need to figure this out because there's going to be a fight, I'm going to murder this guy.
No, I agree. Some of
And
this
then-
is my own sensibilities. I agree.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying the solution isn't for, Palestinians to just fuck off. The solution is for Israel to give back, plus international boosting of Palestine. They need to make reparations for what they've done and the initial settling of Israel.
No,
because
that's right.
just storming in and taking it, that's not right. But also just saying, well, fuck you, Israel, go move somewhere else. That's probably not going to work either.
No, I feel you. And look, Israel's not going anywhere. They have nuclear weapons. They're not going anywhere.
Exactly.
I agree with you. I agree with you, Avery. I love it. I love consensus. I love this like consensus building. No, I agree with you, man. I don't have this thing in my head that Israel is going to dissolve and die. I don't think that at all. I don't even know if I want that per se. But the current state of events can't go on. And so it's like, Jesus Christ, you guys are putting kids in prison. Is this what you really want to be? Like, is this what whatever this kind of high ideals of the state of Israel was supposed to be in its creation? So I agree with you. I'm going to end this because apparently there's someone from Hebron who wants to call in, and I'm going to let him call in. So look, thank you very much for listening, and I appreciate you arguing with me for this point of view.
No problem. Nice chatting with you.
Oh, very cool. Have a good one.
You too.
right.
Bye-bye.
So there's somebody apparently from Hebron who wants to call in. Anna's Jerusalem. Skip Rock, he'd have to figure out how to put his shoes on first for sake of companion. Reparations and a treaty. Reparations would be a nice start. If someone took my family dog then made me sleep in a doghouse, be the wrong to my... What? I missed that part. And to sign off on the following fascist plans for the United States. Uh-oh. These conversations always, sometimes... Bashar al-Assad, I think Netanyahu needs special mention in the discussion. He's an impediment. He is an impediment. He's a right-winger. She did kind of bring him up. I mean, she made the point of a right-wing government. Like, the right-wing government makes it almost impossible to have any level of interaction. And what makes it so bad, Hamas. Anna's Jerusalem. Yeah, Anna's Jerusalem, call in. Call in. The number is... bastard. Anna's Jerusalem, call in. And let's see. Apparently, there was someone from Hebron who wants to... Right here. The number's below. Jewish state. Yeah, I got it. It makes me antsy even calling it that. It just feels weird. It's a state. It's a nation. It's a nation. The argument that the current government is BS, every Israeli government since 1948 has essentially maintained the same policy. Yeah, the policy hasn't fully changed per se, but the naming is a big deal. I mean, what else in the legal apparatus is going to conform to this idea of it being a Jewish state? And if this is just the start of laws, where else does it go from the standpoint of this kind of racialism? Jamal, it's Anna's. I don't see a phone call. Oh, call again. I didn't see it. I'm sorry. Call again. I didn't even hear a ring. Anna, call one more time. I'm sorry. Look, here's the thing, man. If you're in one of those countries, it is hard. If you're a left-wing government, strength is easy. What the country perceives as weakness, not so much. And to give you an example, look at what Trump goes to Russia. Trump is not belligerent enough, and so they attack him for not being belligerent enough. I understand there's a context in America to it. But it's very similar. It is easy to show strength as opposed to weakness. Even if you had a left wing government in Israel, there's only so far you can go to the left. And if anything happens in an intervening time, meaning a bomb or something goes off, it's going to fuck it to hell. Whereas, and it's weird, it's so bizarre. The left wing policy gets more so at the root of an issue as opposed to a right wing policy. But a right wing policy propagates itself. It's like anger propagates itself. Hello, who's calling?
Sorry, I had the wrong number.
No, you're fine. You say you have the wrong number? Oh, okay. That was interesting. That was interesting. The only difference is that Netanyahu has dropped all pretense. Yeah, he's dropped all pretense. He's like, well, wanting peace. The media wants war. That's who signs their paychecks. I think they're unaffected by it, so they don't care. Hello, who's calling to the show?
Hello, here is Anas. Sorry, I thought I had the wrong number before.
No. I don't think you had the wrong number. I was looking at the area code. I was like, I think he's calling the right place, but he seems pretty sheepish. What's going on, man? How's it going?
No, but because I was looking at the YouTube, so it didn't show there that there is a call, you know.
No. You're fine. What's going on? What do you want to talk about?
Yeah, so you have, sorry for you and the viewers, you have to be patient a little bit because my English is not my native language.
No worries.
But I hope you understand me though.
Yeah, no, you're fine. You're absolutely fine. Go for it.
Thank you. So the thing you were talking about before, something stopped me that, where do I start? There's a lot to talk about. But to put the all the blame on the Palestinians all the time, even though they are just really want to survive. It's not about the land, and they don't want their land to be stolen anymore. Of course they don't want that, but also there is no healthy life conditions. There is no life there.
Yeah.
You have different roads for Jewish people and for Arabs. In the Western, for example, if you walk accidentally near a settlement, you will be shot. It's more than just the land and stones and that's it.
No, I understand. Let me ask you this, and I agree with you that it's more than land. I usually I think of it in terms of, I say atrocity because I say atrocity from the standpoint of people being killed and shot and imprisoned and so forth. I agree with you. It's more than land. I'm curious about the position of the population. Like, what is the perspective of the people who are there with regards to the passage of this law?
There's a big problem in Palestine, not just the occupation, also let me call it the inner occupation in Palestine itself. The Palestinian government recognized this in 1994 in Oslo as a state under the agreement that they should stop building settlements in the West Bank and go back to the 67 borders.
Yes.
And Palestine has been its own state. Nothing from that has been done, but the regime kept, the Palestinian regime kept pushing the people to only this solution with this government.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? There is no elections, nothing. So the people don't decide anything there, actually.
Oh, I see what you mean. There's no functional government from the standpoint of Palestine.
Yeah, there is no functional government, neither in West Bank or in Gaza. But this is not the main problem. The main problem, of course, is the occupation. I don't put all the blame on the occupation, of course. Every nation has its bad and good, but
Yes.
it remains the main problem. So even a single state solution Justice in Israel said that herself. She said we can't allow, we must keep a Jewish, what's it called?
Identity?
So they must keep a Jewish
Nation or identity.
state. So yeah, they can't allow it to happen that it becomes more Arabs than Jews in this state. So they want to do a single state solution, and they want to keep that and defend it, even if it was on the cost of the human rights.
That's, you know what's wild? I thought that doing this was to try to head off any idea of a Jewish Palestinian state. Like, I thought the only reason you would do this is if you want to kill this idea of a single state. Because Palestinians, I do remember, from my understanding, if you're talking about Poles, we're looking at this idea of a single state being a better idea. I'm curious, though, from the standpoint of Israelis, like what's the population thinking? Like, I understand that the government is a right-wing government, but what is the Israeli population thinking about this law?
Oh, the Israeli population is the majority of them accept that and they find it okay, you know. Because if you walk in Israel and ask the people too, you will get the answer that this is our land and they just should move on, go someplace else. So they don't really care about it. Of course, there in Israel also some socialist left-wingers and so on, but they are not that much. They don't make that percentage from the entire population there. And they are not here, and they are hated also. So to call somebody a leftist in Israel is a casual.
Wow.
It's like you are against your own nation and your own land, your own state.
Essentially a self-hating Jew.
Yeah.
I've heard that used against Chomsky, a self-hating Jew.
Yes, that's used against everybody that defends Palestinians.
That is amazing. But that, you know what that means? I mean, that means for the most part that this idea of a solution, like a two-state solution, becomes almost impossible. What political leader could get to power in Israel if being called a leftist is a slur?
Mm-hmm.
Jesus Christ.
What was the last sentence that you said? Sorry, I didn't hear that.
That's amazing. That's amazing. So what is your take on this? I'm curious. You're there. I mean, what's your take from your standpoint, from where you are looking at the world and from your experiences and everything else? What is your perspective of what is taking place from the standpoint of the law, and what do you think will take place with the passage of this law?
I think this law is nothing new for Palestinians who are in West Bank, in Gaza, or who are living in Israel. Mm-hmm. Apartheid was functioning without a law since a long time, and there is a lot of racism against Palestinians in Israel. If you want to study in the university in Israel, and you haven't served in the army, it's barely impossible to get to the university, especially if you want to study medicine or study something with engineering.
Wow.
You do an exam before, so an entrance exam called itself psychometry.
Yeah.
And if you serve in the army, you get from 750 points, 150 points plus automatically before you do the exam. You know?
Yeah. Wow.
And if you want to work anything, even at the gym station, at the petrol station, you must have you get a formula to fill in, and if you didn't serve in the army, it becomes impossible to work there. So, yeah, Palestinians then were working mostly in the Arab villages, where the situation is not so good as in the Jewish cities and Jewish villages.
Wow.
In Israel itself, within Israel, not in West Bank or Gaza.
That's amazing.
Yeah, and in West West Bank or Gaza, in West Bank especially, there is a lot of people who want to, they go to work in Israel. They get half the payment than an Israeli who is working in Israel, but they go and work there because there is not a lot of work in Palestine itself. So when they do anything, for example, they put a post on the Facebook or they share a photo of a soldier hitting a child, they are not allowed to work there anymore. They are not allowed to leave Palestine anymore.
See, right there, and this is why I compare this to what my understanding of the framework to which Israel is using to exist in somebody else's territory during this occupation is set through the framework and the lens of the United States. And I look at it from the standpoint of the way African Americans were second-class citizens in the United States, and that what would take place from the standpoint of cops to African Americans, even now, would get, for the most part, put to the side or not paid attention to, or crimes or violence that was taking place against African Americans, again, were pushed to the side, not paid attention to, or, it was considered bad form to bring up the racial disparity in the country itself. Like, it comes across in similar terms, where there's a clear division between the two. I find this to be amazing. It's amazing. Dude, I really appreciate you calling in, because I don't have any contacts in Israel. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
If I do have contacts in Israel, I studied with a lot of Palestinians who are born in Israel.
Yeah.
And have the Israeli passport. And in Hebron, I knew a lot of them too, but Jewish Israeli, I didn't know. So they don't. When they come to the West Bank, they come to the city. They don't walk on the streets like the Arab people. They don't talk to Arab people. They are not allowed to.
Oh, I see what you mean. They're separated.
They are not allowed.
You're saying by law, they're separated.
Yes, by law, it's separation. Even we have a settlement in Hebron in the heart of the city. It goes through 500 settlers almost, and we walk like side by side on different streets, and they are completely separated. That
is amazing. Wait. So one question. So are there Jewish only areas also?
Yes, those are Jewish only areas. For example, in the heart of the city, you can't go to every block or every area. You have to know where to walk. If you walk in the Jewish area, you get arrested.
Wow.
Even if you are living there, you are not allowed to enter even the Arab roads without having like they give you a card that you live here, and you pass through a checkpoint every time, even if you want to go to the supermarket or to the school. You should show them this card, and if somebody from your relatives want to visit you or your friend, they must get accepted at the checkpoint that they can come in and everything, and then they come in.
That's amazing. I remember when I was in Bethlehem.
500 settlers in Hebron, in the heart of the city, protected by 2,500 Israeli soldiers and Israeli police.
Wow, that's amazing. I remember I took a trip between Bethlehem and Jerusalem, and the bus driver on our way back, an Arab guy, gets pulled out of the car because he didn't have, I guess it was some kind of paper or some kind of form that he was supposed to have in order to drive between the two. And it gets taken away. The soldier says very politely, "We're sorry, we're going to have to get you another bus driver to come take you to point A to point B." That's amazing. That's absolutely amazing. Wow. Is there anything else you would like to get across to this audience? Because most of Americans have never been to Israel, and most will never be or go to Israel. And their perspective of this is only coming from like Western media. What would be something that we don't know that takes place on something of a daily basis from the standpoint of life in, you could say, Hebron or that area of the world?
So I understand why most of the Americans um, think like they always talk in the point of view from the Israeli side. I can understand that because I see the Western media and their propaganda, and I can't blame them actually because they don't see the truth.
Yeah.
But in America, especially in America, in the United States, you can't get the truth about Palestine being from the mainstream media. You just can't.
I didn't get it either until I was over there. I didn't see it. Like when I ended up in, I think I was in Cairo when I was looking at the media. And it was something that was taking place where they were like taking people's crops away. Like it was like, what? And they would go through and they would say, we're looking for bombs. And they would get rid of, and they would give people money that was insufficient for those people to live in comparison to the crops that they had. And I remember talking to a gentleman from Israel. We were on the bus ride. We were in Nepal. And he was trying to explain to me, yeah, we do that because sometimes they had bombs in the crops. And I said, but you understand that if you're taking their crops, how people are going to see that, especially when the majority of those people don't have bombs anywhere. And he's like, yeah, I can kind of see how that's an issue. Now, the catch is, I could have a conversation with him. But if I'm in America, like, the point of view is so jaded here. Like, it's so, I understand why it's jaded, because media talks about it a particular way, but it's so bizarre from the standpoint of the actual reality of what's taking place on the ground. That's why I appreciate your calling in.
Thank you, Jamal. Thank you for having me.
No, man. Thank you for calling in, man. I appreciate it. All right, guys. This show has been all over the place, and I love it. I love it when people can call in and talk. Somebody says I didn't have my facts because they're mad. I have no idea what he's talking about. I can only tell you my experiences and what I've come across. If I am wrong, then you got to make me know it. But this was great. I love this show, and I love having the people call in. In fact, I may even cut the show just for having the call-ins. Stop all wars, at least the ones that the United States is a part of. You know, it's funny he's talking rubbish, Jamal. What guy? This guy? Oh, I'm not worried about him, man. You're always gonna have there's always a percentage. I don't care about the total. Get Michael Brooks to call in again. Oh yeah, that was funny. Civil disobedience. I went to a Free Assange rally in Boston early this morning. About 15 people showed up. Jamal, get Abby Martin on. I had Abby Martin on, Balthazar. You're fucking around, Balthazar. You know I had Abby Martin on. Anna, thank you for calling in. And this gentleman, thank you for calling in. Both of you. I know Anna, I don't think it's funny, man. When we talk about stuff, language is so fucking weird. I wish we could just plug each other into each other's heads. And I try not to devolve into this thing of argument, even though I know I devolve into the thing of argument. Alarms. I'm not sure about the comic call-ins. It feels like Ivory. What did I say? Ivory, I'm sorry. I meant both of you, Ivory and Anna. I'm sorry. I meant you, Ivory. You're the first. Look, the call-ins. When I do the call-ins, I am not thinking Door, believe it or not. I'm thinking of rip-off of somebody else. Even when I start the call-ins. So, if you notice, because I've heard somebody else say that, a rip-off of Jimmy. They act as if Jimmy was the first person and the only person to ever do this. I think it's Jimmy is the person who you guys are most familiar with that do this, but plenty of people do this. And yes, it's a ripoff. It is a ripoff of Conan O'Brien, not Jimmy Dore. Look back at some of the old Conan O'Brien skits. Yes, this is in my head. Conan O'Brien has a skit where he starts the show, and he starts the show talking about something specific. And then he either gets a call-in or pop-in. If I remember, they used to be call-ins. And Conan O'Brien used to have these conversations with the person, but under the premise as if he was starting a show. If you've noticed, all of my shows have been the exact same way when we're talking about call-ins. Door does a show in a different way from the standpoint of call-ins. But I do understand it. Just saying. Anna's Jerusalem, thank you for calling in. And Ivory, thank you for calling in. I appreciate both of you. Peter version 1, please don't stop doing shows like this. Peter version 1, I'm not. I like these free-form open shows, and I do like when people call in, especially when the perspective is honest. And Ivory, I take your perspective as being honest, even on the areas to which we disagree, which I don't even know how many of those areas are. I think the big disagreement is on the creation of Israel. Not the idea of it, the creation of it. I think that's where we take the disagreement with. If they put Israel in like Zambia or something like that, or Namibia or whatever, and Namibians were okay with it, no issue. The world is great. The world is ticking along. I'm on the beaches of Israel at that point, running in the sun. And as Jerusalem, you're right that they do not report the reality of events in the West. Look at what took place with what's her name? She said occupation and it crumbled. Even Obama, the guy wrote that thing about Obama saying, yeah, I'm limited to what I can do and talk about on this particular subject. So will Ocasio-Cortez also crumble? Will she evolve on this issue of Palestine? We will see. Assange next. Yeah, Assange is next. All right. I'll be back in like 5 or 10 minutes. I want to talk about Assange because there is extraordinarily bad news about Assange. I'll talk about it shortly. Have a good one, guys.